In the quiet town of Willow Creek, nestled between rolling hills and a lazy river, lived a woman named Sarah Jennings. She was 42, with soft brown hair tied back in a simple ponytail, and eyes that held a gentle weariness. Every morning, Sarah woke up before dawn in her small apartment above the local diner. The air smelled of fresh coffee brewing downstairs, and she would stretch slowly, feeling the ache in her back from years of standing. She slipped into her uniform, a plain blue polo shirt and khaki pants, and walked the 3 blocks to the grocery store where she worked as a cashier. The store, called Willow Mart, was an old building with creaky wooden floors and shelves stocked high with canned goods, fresh produce, and everyday essentials. Sarah's shift started at 7. She would flip the sign to open and settle behind her register, the one closest to the window. Sunlight filtered through the glass, casting warm patterns on the counter. Customers came in waves, farmers grabbing milk and bread, mothers with toddlers in tow, elderly folks chatting about the weather. Sarah greeted each one with a soft smile. "Morning, Mr. Thompson, how's the garden coming along?" she'd say, her voice steady and kind. Life for Sarah was simple, almost rhythmic. Scan the items, bag them carefully, make change. The beeps of the scanner were like a metronome, marking time in her day. But beneath that calm exterior, there was a quiet ache. Sarah felt invisible sometimes, like she was just part of the scenery. Her days blurred together, and at night, when she lay in bed listening to the crickets outside her window, memories crept in as shadows from a past she tried hard to forget. One Tuesday morning, the store was quieter than usual. Rain pattered gently against the roof, creating a soothing hush. Sarah wiped down her counter, her movements slow and deliberate. A young mother came through with a cart full of diapers and formula. "Rough night?" Sarah asked, noticing the dark circles under the woman's eyes. The mother nodded. "Baby's teething. Keeps us up all hours." Sarah smiled faintly. "It gets better. They grow so fast." She handed over the receipt, her fingers brushing the woman's hand. Moments like these were small comforts, reminders that she could still connect, even if her own life felt stalled. As the morning wore on, the rain eased, and a few more customers trickled in. Sarah paused to sip her coffee, black and strong, from a chipped mug. She thought about her problem, the one that gnawed at her quietly. Money was tight, the store paid minimum wage, and her apartment rent had gone up again. She skimped on groceries for herself, opting for ramen and canned soup. But it wasn't just the bills, it was the loneliness. Sarah had no family left. Her parents had passed years ago, and she'd never married. Friends from her old life, well, that was another story. She pushed the thought away, focusing on the next customer. Around noon, the door chimed, and 2 men walked in. They were tall, broad-shouldered, with short hair and postures that spoke of discipline. One had a scar along his jawline, the other wore sunglasses even indoors. They didn't look like locals. Sarah watched them from her register as they browsed the aisles, picking up bottled water and energy bars. When they approached her counter, she straightened up. "Afternoon," she said calmly. "Find everything okay?" The man with the scar nodded, placing their items down. He was in his 50s, with a voice like gravel. "Yes, ma'am, we're looking for someone." Sarah Jennings. Her heart skipped a beat, but she kept her face neutral. "That's me. How can I help?" The other man removed his sunglasses, revealing sharp blue eyes. "I'm Lieutenant Commander Reyes, U.S. Navy SEALs. This is Chief Harlan. We need to talk privately." Sarah glanced at the clock. Her lunch break was in 10 minutes. "Okay, give me a moment," she called over her coworker, a young kid named Tim, to cover the register. Then she led the men to the small break room in the back, where a folding table and chairs sat under fluorescent lights. The room smelled of stale donuts and microwave popcorn. They sat down. Sarah folded her hands in her lap, waiting. The rain had started again, tapping softly on the window like fingers on a drum. Chief Harlan leaned forward. "Miss Jennings, we're here about your service record from back in '05. Sarah's breath caught. She hadn't heard those words in years. "That was a long time ago. I left the military." "Honorably." Reyes nodded. "We know, but something's come up, a mission we were on recently. It reminded us of you, of what you did." She looked down at her hands, calloused from bagging groceries. I don't talk about that anymore. The men exchanged glances. Harlan pulled out a tablet from his bag and tapped the screen. You were a Marine sniper, attached to our unit in Iraq, Fallujah, remember? How could she forget? The heat, the dust, the endless waiting. Sarah had enlisted young, right out of high school, driven by a sense of duty after 9/11. She trained hard, excelled in marksmanship, became one of the best, but the memories were heavy. Friends lost, choices made in the blink of an eye. Ray's continued, his voice low. There was that day, pinned down in a rooftop ambush. Insurgents closing in, you took a shot from 500 yards. One bullet saved our whole team. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. The image flashed, lying prone on a distant building, wind whispering across her cheek, scope trained on the target, steady breath, squeeze, the crack of the rifle, the figure dropping. Lives spared. I did my job, she said softly. Harlan shook his head. It was more than that. That shot. It's legendary in our circles, but you never took credit. Disappeared after your tour. We thought you'd gone into private security or something. Not this. Sarah glanced around the break room, at the faded posters on the wall. This is my life now. Quiet, normal. Ray leaned in. We get it. The toll it takes. Nightmares. The wait. But we're here because a young SEAL just made a similar shot. Broke your unofficial record. He wants to meet you. Honor you. A gentle twist settled in her chest. All these years, she'd buried that part of herself, thinking it was better forgotten. The problem wasn't just money or loneliness, it was the disconnection from who she used to be. The hero she'd been, now reduced to scanning barcodes. Why now? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Harlan smiled faintly. Because stories like yours inspire. And frankly, ma'am, you deserve recognition. There's a ceremony next month at the base. Medal of Valor, retroactive, and a pension adjustment. It could change things for you. Sarah sat back, the chair creaking under her. The rain outside slowed to a drizzle, sunlight peeking through clouds. She thought about her empty apartment, the bills stacking up, but more than that, the void inside. Maybe this was a bridge back to herself. I'll think about it, she said finally. The men stood, shaking her hand firmly. Take your time, but know this, you're not forgotten. After they left, Sarah returned to her register. The afternoon dragged on, but her mind wandered. Customers came and went, their faces blurring. When her shift ended at 4, she walked home slowly, the pavement glistening from the rain. Birds chirped in the trees, a soft breeze carrying the scent of wet earth. That evening, Sarah sat on her small balcony, a cup of tea in hand. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in oranges and pinks. She pulled out an old photo from a drawer, one of her in uniform, rifle slung over her shoulder, smiling with her squad. Tears welled up, but they were cleansing, not bitter. Days turned into weeks. Sarah went about her routine, but something shifted. She chatted more with customers, shared laughs with Tim. The problem of isolation eased, like a knot loosening. She called the number Ray's had left, agreeing to the ceremony. The day arrived. Sarah drove to the naval base, 3 hours away, in her old pickup truck. The gates loomed large, guards waving her through. She wore a simple dress, her hair down for once. The ceremony was in a hangar, flags fluttering gently. SEALs stood in formation, crisp uniforms gleaming. Ray's introduced her. Ladies and gentlemen, Sarah Jennings, the woman who set the standard. Applause filled the air. A young man stepped forward at the one who'd broken her record. He was tall, earnest, with a fresh scar on his arm. Ma'am, your shot saved lives. Inspired mine. Thank you. Sarah shook his hand, her grip steady. You did good, son. Keep them safe. They pinned the medal on her chest, the weight familiar yet new. Speeches followed, stories shared. For the first time in years, Sarah felt seen, and not as a cashier, but as the woman she'd always been. Back in Willow Creek, life continued, but transformed. The pension helped with bills. She even treated herself to a new coat. Customers noticed the change, asking about the pin she now wore on her uniform. Old military thing, she'd say with a wink. One evening, as she closed the store, Mr. Thompson lingered. Heard about your past, Sarah. Proud of you. She smiled, locking the door. Thanks. It's good to remember. Walking home under the stars, Sarah paused by the river. The water flowed gently, reflecting the moon. She breathed deep, the air cool and clean. The twist of revelation had mended something broken inside her. No more hiding. She was Sarah Jennings, a cashier, sniper, survivor, and that was enough. In the quiet of the night, with crickets singing their lullaby, Sarah felt a profound peace. Her story wasn't over, it was just beginning anew. Friends from the base reached out, old bonds rekindled, the loneliness faded, replaced by connection. She volunteered at the local veterans group, sharing her experiences in soft, measured words. Young folks listened, eyes wide, inspired by her calm strength. Months later, on a crisp fall day, Sarah stood in her apartment, looking out the window. Leaves swirled in the wind, golden and free. She thought back to that rainy Tuesday, the men who walked into her store. A gentle twist, indeed. It had led her here to a life fuller, richer. And as the sun set, casting long shadows across the town, Sarah whispered to herself, "I'm home." The ending wasn't grand, but it was real, emotionally grounded in the simple truth that sometimes, recognition comes when we least expect it, healing wounds we thought would never close.